All right, let's get started. So, as we discussed in the first video, right from the first video, we started by getting ourselves familiar with Python, and then we move on to NumPy. Then we started with Pandas. So today, in this particular video, we are going to talk about data visualization using Matplotlib and then Seaborn. Okay, so basically all the visualizations that we will be doing throughout the program. They are all having their basis on Matplotlib, right? So Matplotlib, you can think of Matplotlib as the basis of all of them. As the mother of all of them, right? So we will talk about Matplotlib and then we will talk about Seaborn. Moving on, in subsequent classes, in advanced classes like the machine learning classes, we also introduce new visualization packages that we can also use, right? But in the meantime, we are going to get our hands on with Matplotlib and then Seaborn. Okay, so Matplotlib, as I said, is actually the basics of all the other libraries, on top of which other packages have been built. All right, so Seaborn, for instance, is built on top of Matplotlib. All right, Seaborn, for instance, is built on top of Matplotlib. Okay, so if we are using Seaborn, then automatically we are using the functions of Matplotlib. Okay, and we're going to see how we're going to do this in this particular video. All right, so as we started dealing with in the NumPy and then also in the Pandas class, if we want to use any particular library, what we can do is to first load the particular library. Okay, is to first load the particular library. So let's get started straight away and then see how we're going to deal with this visualization and how we're going to use Matplotlib and Seaborn, and how Seaborn is actually going to give us the flexibility to actually work with Matplotlib, right? How is actually going to help us to plot more as simple visualization as possible as compared to dealing with Matplotlib directly, which is quite heavy to deal with. All right, sometimes it's quite difficult just using Matplotlib, right? But with Seaborn, things become as easier as possible, and you're going to see it as we progress in this video. Okay, you're going to see it as we progress in this video. So let's start. So as I said, if you want to use any library, the first thing you need to do is to import the particular library. So as you can see here, in the previous video rather, we dealt with NumPy. Right, so we import NumPy, right, and then we shorten it to NP, and then we import Pandas, then we shorten it to PD. Okay, so this is what we've been dealing with so far, right? In the last two videos, this is what we've been dealing with so far. So today, what we're going to deal with is this Matplotlib, right? And then Matplotlib is also having this pyplot, right? Pyplot is nothing but it has various states that preserve across function cells, right? It's actually give this Matplotlib more interactive, right? It makes it more interactive, and it gives it more command styles that you can actually use, right, to work with. If you are a little bit familiar with MATLAB, you actually appreciate this pyplot, right? But if you are not familiar with it, there's no problem with it. What we're going to do in this video will have no connection with MATLAB, all right? So you don't need to worry yourself about it. What you just need to know is that this pyplot actually help us to actually have some command styles and functions that we're going to actually use with this Matplotlib. Okay, so if you see this this one that I'm adding here, right, which is like a percentage sign and then the Matplotlib inline. So what this is going to do is actually going to help us plot all the visualizations that we want to plot inside this Jupyter Lab, or if you're using Jupyter Notebook, inside the Jupyter Notebook. Okay, so this is what this function is actually going to help you to actually do. Okay, to help you plot whatever you want to, whatever visualization or whatever plot that you want to do, you can plot it inline, meaning that you can plot it inside this notebook that you're using. Okay, so having load this, right, having load our library, so you can use shift command to load it, just like we're doing in our previous classes. All right, so over here I've given you this plt.plot, right? If you want to find more information about this plot, if you run this, it will give you a lot of information over here, right? It's going to give you a lot of information over here that you can actually read and then if you want to gain more information about what we are dealing with. Okay, you can read all these and then to get more information about it. Right? Whatever is here, we are going to practice it. So we are not going to go through this documentation, but if you want to read it, you can just uncomment this. If you get the notebook, I'm going to load it on the platform so that you can actually have access to it, and then you can work alone. Okay, so let me comment this one and then I run it so that we have space down there. Okay, so now we've loaded our libraries, right? These are the libraries that we are going to work with within this particular notebook or within this particular video. Okay, so we've loaded that. Now what we're going to do is to start plotting something. All right, so let's just start plotting a point. All right, let's just start plotting a point. So what I'm going to do is that, remember that when we imported the matplotlib.pyplot, we shortened everything to plt. So moving forward, I'm not going to use this matplotlib.pyplot over and over again, just like we're doing with numpy and pandas, right? We import numpy, then we shorten it to np, then we import pandas, then we shorten it to pd, so that moving on, right, subsequently we'll be using just pd and then np and not be wasting time typing numpy and pandas over and over again. So the same thing that we did here, right? When we imported the matplotlib.pyplot, we shortened it to plt. So that's what I'm using here. I'm using plt.plot, right? So plot is a function which is present in Matplotlib, right? Which is present in Matplotlib, which is going to help you to actually plot some graphics. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do over here is that I'm going to plot just a point, right? So on x-axis, I'm going to look for 4 units, and then on y-axis I'll trace 3 units, and then I'll plot a point over there. Okay, so if I do that, you see what I have over here. Okay, if I do that, let me bring my pen here so that you can see. Okay, now if I do that, right, you can see that on x-axis, I said on x-axis I'm going to use this, right, which is 4 units, and then on y-axis I'm going to use this 3 units. Okay, so if I do that, see that on x-axis I have this 4 units there, so that you can trace it over there, and then on y-axis I have this 3 units, right? So where they meet is where I've been able to plot this point, right? Where they meet is I've been able to plot this point. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do, and that's what this plot function will help us to actually do. So this is present in Matplotlib. Okay, this function is present in Matplotlib, and we're going to be seeing this in action over and over again as we progress in the course. Okay, as we progress in the course. So this is just a basics of it. Just plotting a point. Okay, we can also plot a number of points, right? We just plotted just a single point. We can plot a number of them, right? So let's see how we are actually going to do that. Okay, so let me show you the output so that we can work alongside the output over here. Okay, let me do it like this. Okay, now what I'm doing over here is that I have this x, right, which contains this let me maybe change this, something like that. Okay, so I have this x which contains this array. In the bracket, in the bracket I have this list, right? Remember, we've been talking about a list, how to create a list right from the numpy class. So this is a list inside this array function. So I'm converting this list into a numpy array. Right? That's why earlier on we imported numpy also, because we are going to use numpy o2. So that's why over here I'm using np. We imported numpy as np, right? So I'm using np, which represents numpy. So numpy.array. So I'm converting this list into a numpy array. That becomes the x values, right? That becomes my x values. And then for my y values, I do not want to create any other data point. So what I'm going to do is that if I pick any item here, if I pick any x item here, so for instance, if I pick 2 over here, I divide it by 2, right? So that going to give me 2 divided by 2, which is 1. So that becomes the first item for y. I pick 4, right? Then I do 4 divided by 2, and that becomes the second item for y. I pick say 6, right, divided by 2, and that becomes the third item for y, right? So that's what I'm doing. So the items that I've generated here, right? Then this list that I've converted to NumPy array, which is the item for my X, right? If I pick any of the items and divide by 2, that becomes my Y, right? That also becomes, because I need I need data here on the let me pick this thing up. Yeah, I need data here on the Y axis, and then I need data here, right? I need data here on the X axis, right? So on the X axis, I'm saying that these are my data points. Then on the Y axis, right, is each of these values divided by 2, right? That's the values that I'm generating for the Y. Okay, so now if you come here, you can see that if X is 2, you can see that Y is 1, right? Y is 1, because that would be 2 divided by 1, 2 divided by 2 is just 1, right? So if X is 4, right, if X is 4 over here, if X is 4, then Y will be 2, right? Y will be 2 over here. If X is 4, then Y will be 2 over here. Okay, so the same thing over here, just the same thing that I'm getting over here. Okay, now what this one is doing is that still I'm using the Matplotlib here, right, to set the figure size, right? So I'm using plt.figure. So this is a figure function which is present in Matplotlib, right, which you can use to set the length and then the width. So from this side, right, let me actually pick this, right? So from all the way from here, right, is what you can see as the 20 here, as the 10 that you're given here, right? So this is what you can see here as 10, right, as 10 units, right? That's the length that you can see. And then from here, right, from here all the way up here, right, is what you can see here as 5, you can see here as 5, right? So I have 5 units over here, right? So that's what I'm setting over here. So that becomes the figure size, that I'm setting. Okay, so in this one you can manipulate it as you want, right? For instance, if I change this, right, if I change this to say 20, if I change it to say 20, and then this I change this to say 15, and then run it again, right? Now you see that I have a bigger one, right? Right? So you can see how big it has become. It cannot even fit the screen, right? You can see how big it has become. So if I change it to say small, right? So instead of 20, maybe I should change it to say 7. If I change it to say 7, 5, right? If I do that, now you see how it has become small, right? See how it has become small. So it's just a way that you can actually manipulate the size of your figure, right? You can manipulate the size of your figure as you want. And then apart from that, what I'm doing again is that I'm plotting a scatter plot, right? I'm using a scatter function here, which is nothing but scatter plot, right? It's just scatter plot, right? So that's a scatter function. Then I'll pass in, let me push this a little bit up, and then do it like this. Okay. Then I'm using this scatter function, right? I'm using this scatter function to plot a scatter plot. Okay, then I'm passing in my X, so that's the data point that I'm passing in, that is my X. And then my Y here is what I'm passing in here. Then I'm setting the color to be green, right? That's why you can see green over here, right? I can change this color to say blue, right? So over here I'm using green. I can change this green to say blue, right? And if I run it, now you see that I have blue, right? I have blue points inside here. Okay, so you can, change it as you want. You can manipulate it as you want. Then I'm using plt.show, right, to show my plot, right? I'm using plt.show to actually show my plot, right? So that's what I'm actually using this plt.show to do, right? You can even get rid of this, right? If having done the Matplotlib inline, I could have get rid of this, okay? But if you use plt.show, it's just to show your plot, all right? Just to show your plot. So this is, one way to create this, several points. Earlier on, we showed how to create a single point. Now we've seen how to create multiple points. All right, we've seen how to create multiple, and also we've also seen how we can actually set the figure size. Okay, so take note of that, because in your projects and others that you're going to do, we are actually going to be using this over and over again, right? We are going to be using this over and over again. So if I show you some of the projects over here, maybe this. So let me try this and see if I did something. Maybe this one will work better, or something like this. Let me see if I find any visualization that I set the figure size. You see, okay, you can see that over here I'm using that, right? You can see that I'm using that. Okay, I'm combining that with SNS, which is Seaborn. We will see it very soon, right? Which is Seaborn. We are going to see it very soon. Okay, so you're going to be needing this over and over again. Anything that I'm showing you are things that you're going to need to be able to accomplish your project, to be able to actually be successful in the field as a data scientist or machine learning engineer or AI engineer, right? So these are the things that you'll be needing it over and over again. All right, so take note of each and everything that we will discuss in here. Okay, so we've seen how we can actually plot points, right? Just a single point and multiple points. Now let's see, right? This one, we don't have any label on the y-axis. We don't have any label here on the x-axis, so we don't actually know what these data points mean. We don't know what these data points mean. We don't know what these points are actually showing us. So in order to make things a bit clear, we can actually label these axes, right? The y-axis and then the x-axis respectively. We can label them, right? So let's see how we can actually do that. Okay, let's see how we can actually do that. So in this case, I'm just going to plot this list 1 2 3 4. I'm just going to plot that, then I will show you how you're actually going to, let me show the output so that we can actually work alongside that. Okay, now what I'm doing over here is that let me show you with a pen. What I'm doing over here, okay, what I'm doing is that I'm going to plot this, right, which is just some list 1 2 3 4, right? And then I'm going to use anything that we are doing so far. We are using Matplotlib. Okay, so remember that when we import the Matplotlib, right, we import Matplotlib, right, matplotlib.pyplot as plt, right, as plt. We did that, so we are using plt over and over again. We are using Matplotlib over and over again, right? So whatever we've been doing so far is Matplotlib. Okay, now I'm going to use this plot function to plot this 1 2 3 4. Okay, now if I want to label the y-axis, right, if I want to label the y-axis, what Matplotlib will help me to do is to give me this function, which is y-label, right, which is y-label. So if I do plt.ylabel, now inside that y-label function, I can put in the particular label that I want. So in this case, I'm just saying vertical. It could be any label, right? So depending on the data that you're working on, you can give that a label here. In order to also label the x, right, to label the x-axis, you can use the x label, right? You can use the x label. In this case, I just pass in horizontal, right, which you can see here that is showing horizontal, showing vertical, right? So this vertical will be plotted on the y-axis, and then this horizontal will be plotted on the x-axis, right? Because we are using x label and then the y label. So y label will help you to label the y-axis, x label will help you to label the x-axis. So as simple as that. Then this plt.show, which we are using to show this plot that we are plotting here. Okay, so basically that is it, right? And you can change this, right? Maybe on the y, maybe I just want to name it as maybe y-axis, right? We can do that, and then maybe I just want to do this one as x-axis, right? We can do that. So if you run it now, you see that we have y-axis, we have x-axis. So depending on what you actually want to do, you can actually manipulate it in that way. Okay, so we've learned how to plot just a single dot. We have learned how to plot multiple dots, and then we have also learned how to actually label our axis. Okay, now let's see how we can actually create multiple plots, right, with subplots. What I mean is that we have only one plot here, which is this, right? We have only one plot, which is this one we are seeing on our screen, right? This one. Let me actually So what I wanted to show you that we only have this, right? We only have this. Okay, now what if we want to plot several of them? Maybe we want to plot another one here, maybe we want to plot one down here, right? Maybe we want to do that, right? So we can have one, we can have two, we can have three, we can have four, right? We can do that too, right? We can do that too. So let's see how we will go about that, right? Let's see how we can actually create that. So if you see what I'm doing over here, right, let me take you through so that you can actually see. Let me show you the output so that you can work along with the output, and that in that way things will become clear, right? So let me show you alongside the output. Okay, so what I'm doing over here is that if you see here, I'm creating this list, right? So this is a list, right? I know by now you're familiar with a list and how to create a list. Okay, so this is a list which contains names. So let me actually label this as names. Okay, so I'm going to change all these and then make it as names. Okay, so that should work perfectly for me. Okay, so that works. Now what is happening here is that I'm creating these names, right, which contains some names of students, right? It contains some names of students, which are John, Sanjay, Ellen, Sandra, Nancy, Shubham, and then Philip. Okay, then I have the scores, right? I have the scores of these students, right? So someone scored 10, someone scored 15, someone scored 20, someone scored 30, someone scored 40, someone scored 50, and then someone scored 100. Okay, so I have names of students, I have their score here. All right, so I want to plot this, right? I want to plot this data that I've created over here. Remember that we talked about this setting the figure size, right? So that's actually what I'm doing here, right? Having the length to be 20 and then the width to be 10. Okay, that's what I'm doing over here. So now I want to plot several plots at the same time. Unlike what we were doing here, that we just plot one, I want to plot several of them, right? So if you can see the output that we have here, see that we don't have one, we have three of them, right? We have three of them. So that's what I want to do. So in order to achieve that, right, I'm going to use this subplot, right? I'm going to use this subplot function, which is present in Matplotlib. Okay, so what this means is that you see in the bracket that we have this 131. Okay, so what this 131 means is that the one that you see in front of the first one that you see here, right? The first one that you see here, it's actually showing you that we have only one row, right? We have only one row. Okay, and then we have three columns, right? Three columns, right? And then this one is showing you that at the first position, right? Plot whatever I want to plot here at the first position. All right, so I have one row, three columns, and then at the first position. So if we trace this down here, if we see this alongside the plot that we have here, right? So let me show you here, or maybe let me reduce this size a bit so that it will actually fit. So instead of 20, I'm going to use 15, right? So maybe 15:10. Let me run that and see how it looks. Okay, so maybe 15:8 will work. Okay, I think I like this one. What about if I do 15:5? Okay, yeah, I think this one will fit well on the screen. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is that just notice that we have only this, we don't have anything, any plots. We have only one, two, three here, we don't have anything here. So I'm going to go this way. It's actually going to cover the town. That's what I want to show you, that there's no other plot there. Now, what this one, these numbers here is saying that we have only one row, right? We have only one row, which is this, just this row, right? So sometimes you might be having you might be having multiple rows. Maybe you might be having another one, right? You might be having another one down here, right? Another plot here, right? You might be having another one plotted down here. right? You might be having another. So in this case, you might be having 2 rows, right? You might be having 2 rows, all right? And then you have 3 columns. That is 1, 2, and then 3. Okay. So in this case, we only have this, right? We only have this. We only have this, right? Which is just 1 row, right? Which is just 1 row and then 3 columns. Okay. So let's go to the code and then see what we are doing over here. What we're doing is that we are specifying that we want only 1 row, right? Only 1 row and then 3 columns, right? So only 1 row, then we have 3 columns, and then what we are going to plot, right? We are going to plot the first one, which is bar. So plt.bar, right? Which is this one, right? Bar graph over here, which is this bar graph that you can see over here, right? We're going to plot that bar graph, but we want it to be at the position 1. That's the one that you can actually see at the back here, right? That's the one that you can actually see at the back here. That's the position of the first one, right? That's the position of the first one. So if you see the second one, we have 1, 3, right? So the 1, 3 is going to be the same thing, which is 1 row and then 3 columns, right? It's going to be the same thing for all of them, but the position is the one which is going to change. Right, so 3, so we have this one, which is second position. You see this one, 1, 3, 3, right? So we have 3 here, which is pointing to the third position. So we're going to plot it at the third position. Okay, so the first one, I'm plotting a bar, right? A bar chart or a bar graph, right? And then I'm passing in my data, which is names, right? Which is names and then scores, right? That's what I'm doing. And then the second one, I'm plotting a scatter plot, which is this one, which is this plot. I'm plotting a scatter plot here, and then I'm passing in the same data, names and scores. And then the last one, I'm just using plot, which is this one, right? And then I'm passing in the same data. Okay, that's what is actually happening here. And then here I'm using plt.subtitle. Subtitle is what is going to give me the title for my subplot. Okay, so I'm passing in categorical plotting, right? That's what you can see over here. So categorical plotting will be plotted over here. Okay, so that's what is actually happening here. So the only thing that maybe you might need to take note of is that I'm using subplot function here, and inside the subplot I'm specifying that I just want 1 row, but I want I want 3 different columns, and then I'm plotting this one at the first position. That's why we see 1, 3, 1, right? 1 row, 3 columns, first position. 1 row, 3 columns, third position. Second position. So this one will be 1 row, third column, and 3 columns, and then first position. Then this one will be the same thing, 1 row, 3 columns, and then second position. Okay, this one will be 1 row, 3 columns, and then third position. So that's what you are seeing over here, right? That's what you're seeing over here in the subplots. Okay, so I hope this is clear. I hope this is clear for you. Right, so you can actually change it as you want, right? You can actually change it. Maybe over here I could have added another one, right? Maybe I could have added another one. So let me maybe duplicate this one here. Okay, and then I'll show that instead of 1 row, now I'm going to change it to say 2 rows, right? I'm going to change this one to 2 rows, 2 rows, 2 rows, right? And then okay, 2 rows, and then this one will be at 4, right? So if I do that, you see what we have now. We have 2 rows, and then we added another one, right? We added another one. So the plot, I can change the plot to say maybe scatter, right? I can change this one to say scatter, so that I'll have scatter plot, right? I can do that. You see that it's changing, right? I can change it to say bar, right? I can change it to say bar. So you can manipulate it as per your own wish, right? You see that it's changing. So you can actually change it to the way that you want, right? So if you want to plot several plots at the same time, right, then you can use the subplot to do that, right? Matplotlib will give you that flexibility to actually do that. Okay, now let's see what we can do again. I've actually given you a note here just in case you forget about this what we actually input here, right? Just in case you want to read more about that, I've actually given you a note over here that you can